Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. In this video, what I want to address is actually a little bit of the meta details about how I have come to be a YouTube educator and what some of the principles that motivate my online video education are. In that sense, I'm not necessarily addressing all of my normal audience, which I think tunes in to hear about Norse language and myth, which is most of what I talk about on this channel, but rather to talk about the channel itself and maybe some of the lessons that I've learned that might be applicable to someone else in a different field who wants to take on the challenge of exploring online video education as the wave of the education future. Now, my Ph.D. is in Scandinavian studies, specializing in something that used to be called philology, that is the study of old languages and texts, Old Norse in my particular case. There are almost no jobs for someone with a degree like mine, and very, very few of the jobs, in fact, practically none of what exist are actually long-term or tenure track. And that's, of course, a part of a larger trend than academia in general, but it's motivated me for many years now to seek other forms of income while still using the education that, after all, I paid a lot of time and money and blood for. So, since about 2016, I've been running this YouTube channel, or I really ought to say online video channel. I don't think that this is limited to YouTube, and YouTube, for all I know, is going to be gone next month or something, right? I mean, these platforms come and go, but I think that online video education is here to stay. And particularly, I think it's here to stay in the form of sort of, what might you say, wildcatter operators like myself, who are affiliated with the university, have university credentials, but don't actually use their online video platforms as representatives of their university who are doing this independently. I mean, especially given that so many of us, myself included, have kind of bounced from university to university in this modern adjunct world where you're rarely attached to a university for very long. So here are 9 principles that have helped and informed me as an online video educator, and that you can take or leave. First, informing is better than correcting. What I mean by that is that there are a lot of, in my case, misconceptions, misperceptions about Norse mythology and language out there, particularly because there's so many popular movies and video games and TV shows about this. And if I spend all of my time correcting those misperceptions, correcting those misconceptions, I am giving the initiative to the misconceptions, right? And those misconceptions won't be the same misconceptions in 10 years, right? If I sit here telling you what's wrong with the Vikings TV show or something, not only am I boring myself, but also in 10 years, nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. But people will still be interested in Vikings. So if you want something to last, you can't be bent just on trying to correct the current popular culture stuff in your field. Also, it tends to be a little bit kinder to the people who aren't misinformed by choice, right? So a lot of people are interested in Vikings or Norse mythology or Norse language today. Sometimes the only information they've been able to find, because they may not have access to a big university library, is stuff on Wikipedia or stuff on some guru's YouTube page or something like that. If you treat their misconceptions as something to be mocked or derided or just sort of thrown away, of course you don't have a very sympathetic audience, but of course those are the people who want to be informed. So if you now and then mention a misconception and how it might be corrected, but don't focus on that and instead focus just on giving good information without the problems that are inherent in the misconceptions you're going to find on Wikipedia or something, then you have that audience and their sympathy. And so informing is better than correcting has motivated and informed me for several years. It's also why I don't do videos like a response to the Vikings TV show except as a joke or something like that. Because again, you know, in 10 years nobody's going to know what that is, And it bores me. Second principle, praising is better than attacking. We've all been hurt in our lives. I certainly have myself. And I'm not talking about, people saying something mean in a comment section, but I mean, real serious harm to life, career, to loved ones. I could certainly use my online video platform to attack the people that have hurt me, the people that I think might hurt me, the people who resemble people that have hurt me. But that is not going to inform anyone, and the very fact that I'm coming at this from a motivation of anger is eventually going to burn out the channel. I prefer simply never to mention the people that have done me wrong or harm. They say that, it's a cliche, living well is the best revenge. Well, to quote, I think a dead Twitter account, @randomantics, if living well is the best revenge, I need to know what the second best revenge is. But, beyond the cliches, what does it do for me? All it does is, again, it's giving the initiative to something else and something bad. It's saying, if you hurt me, I'm going to give you attention. And on the online video platforms of today, attention is the currency. So why bring it up? Instead, if I mention another channel, a source, another person, something like that, I'd like to do it in a positive way, or at least in a neutral enough way that even if I disagree with that person, there's no personal harm or offense done. And I think that that is also better at maintaining an audience and an audience's sympathy, because of course, I'm going to say and do things that are going to offend people, right? I mean, yes, I'm an academic scholar, I have a Ph.D., but, I'm a gun nut, I drive pickups and stuff. Like, there's two halves of my life, and I know that either half is liable to offend, or something about either half is liable to offend someone in the other half, right? Why give people the additional ammo, as it were, by attacking them and being mean? We can all get along in this world. And if you are spending time when you're alone thinking about people that you want to hurt, you need to seek help, not internet attention. All right, number 3 is related to that. Your stage is bigger than your trolls. I've seen this actually come up, sadly, with people who want to start, say, an online video channel or a podcast or something like that. They say, I just don't think I could handle the negativity, right? I've especially seen this coming from minority scholars who feel they might be targeted by bigoted voices on the internet. But the thing is, those bigoted voices need you to be on that platform in the first place, right? These people aren't aerospace engineers, right? I mean, we're not losing out on the next, space shuttle or something, because these people are on Tumblr or Twitter calling you a cuck. They need they need you to give them a place to talk. They're not creating it on their own, and you can ignore them. You don't have to read the comments. I sure as hell don't, right? I mean, you don't have to deal with it in that way. And they are counting on you being discouraged by their negativity and giving up. But the thing is, again, when you're alone, where is that negativity, right? I'm standing at like 11, well, probably not 11. I'm certainly standing well above 9,000 feet in a 3-piece suit. There's no one here to bother me, right? I couldn't tell you the name of a troll or whatever. And that's a state of mind that you need to get into. And remember that even if you look at the comments and you say, oh, this person's, gosh, like even if you don't obsess about it, it can be really unpleasant, right? I don't like looking at people saying nasty things about me. But nobody reads the comments, not even the trolls, right? No one probably even ever saw them call you that. So you can delete it, or in my case, hire somebody to delete it, and get on with your life. You have a stage. They have the space they hold onto on the curtains, and you can easily kick them off. Number 4, it's easier to track a fox than a fisher. Now, a fisher is a kind of weasel-like animal that spends a lot of time in the trees. They're really cool if you see one. It's sort of rare. and they don't come down to the ground that much in my experience. It's cool to see their tracks, but their tracks will go for a little ways until they go up a tree or something like that. A fox, on the other hand, spends most of its time on the ground. Now, what is my analogy here? Too many educators are at the top of the metaphorical ivory tower. And as academics, right, when we university expert people get together at our weird conferences, there is a lot of sensitivity about being perceived as the ultimate expert about all the tiniest details of whatever thing. And you endanger your reputation, your cred, as the super expert who knows every little thing about whatever detail you're talking about, if you talk about things that are too basic, if you presume that your audience doesn't know the basics already. But that's true of those 100 people at extreme best you'd be talking to at an academic conference. If you're talking to people on the internet, you're talking to potentially hundreds of thousands of people who barely know who Odin and Thor are, perhaps, right? You can't spend too much time at the top of the tower, or in my fox and fisher analogy, up in the trees. So the people who are going to spend all their time in the trees aren't even going to be listening to this. They're not going to be thinking about reaching out to people on the internet. But the problem that I see among some academics who are really concerned about being perceived badly by other academics, as if other academics are watching the YouTube channel anyway, is they've got to stay up in the trees, stay up in the tall details, and come down to the ground and then go back up into the trees. And this is actually very hard for a general audience to follow. I prefer to be the fox, as it were. I prefer to stay on the ground, talk about things that are more approachable by a general audience. But then the fox can actually make surprising jumps and can even actually climb trees. But stays grounded, right? There's always a physical move up the tree that you can kind of follow. You know, I guess the fox leaves scat. Maybe I don't want that as part of my analogy up in the trees. But if you follow what I'm saying, you have to stay closer to the ground and not be tempted to show off all the extreme details that you know, unless you know you're talking to an audience of experts. It is different talking to people on the internet and talking to people at an academic conference. Don't worry about what the people you'd be talking to at the conference would think about your YouTube channel, because they'll never see it. All right, somewhat connected to that, the ideal target audience is your younger self. So I've thought about this some, you know, who is my audience? You know, given that I talk about Norse language and myth, you could say people who are excited about Vikings, Norse mythology, whatever. That's actually a lot of different groups, right? You range from Reconstructionist pagans who are trying to practice the religion of the Norse gods, to people of very casual interest who maybe want to get better information for a D&D game, and everything in between, to academic scholars who are mostly interested in the language or archaeology or something like that. Since I know that I can never actually make every one of those audiences, probably any one of those audiences, happy, what I am trying to do is mostly reach out to my younger self, right? Thinking about myself in 2003 or 4, right? An undergraduate getting interested in this stuff, not really knowing where to look for information. And of course, I was kind of a Australopithecine. Even in the early 2000s, I was a very late comer to the internet. So I'm still digging around in libraries at the time, you know, trying to find this information and really having a hard time getting to it. If I had had this channel back then from my later self, you know, this is maybe the information that I would have liked to have been able to find. And of course, you know, think about all of those audiences, but don't be concerned about trying to absolutely please any of them, because again, this is something that's impossible. If you can kind of please your younger self, you're probably going to, on average, hit 80–85% of most of the target audiences that could be interested in your stuff. And just keep in mind, no matter what you do, no matter what algorithm or whatever or theory you might follow about how to manage social media, somebody's always going to hate you. So just, you know, let it go. You can't win, but you can endure. If you come to online video education with the attitude that you're going to attain some point where it's all going to have been worth it, and you can retire to your $1 million home and never do anything else again, you're never going to get there, right? I mean, this isn't a business that's going to make you rich. We're not playing video games and I don't know, cussing out the other players. I guess that's how you make money on YouTube, although I don't understand how to make that jump. You are going to burn out if you're trying to hit a goal like that, right? I had a vague goal for a long time that I was going to hit 100,000 subscribers. I'm not sure it'll ever happen. But even if it does, where does that get me? It's a few thousand more subscribers than now. As I record this, it's completely immaterial. So kind of leave those goals aside as much as you can and focus on enduring. If you're doing something good, people will find your material, they will make use of it, and it will hopefully have been worth your time. Kind of related to that, don't be a holy warrior, don't be a rock star, be a hardware store owner. What do I mean by this? There's a lot of angry people in the world who think that if their side wins whatever contest they're in, that they are going to, that everything's going to be fine. They're going to be happy. These are the holy warriors. And a lot of them come on to online video platforms and spend a lot of time being very angry at a lot of other people. They are not informing people, although they may have very large audiences. Then there's the rock star. Often the rock star is actually a very literal rock star, right? Someone who is, say, a very famous author of fiction, a very famous heavy metal musician, something like that, decides that he knows a lot about something, maybe Norse mythology in my case. All of a sudden, of course, those people have access to maybe millions of viewers, something that someone like me, that nobody knows the name of, is never going to have access to. You can't duplicate that, right? You are not going to be a rock star. If you are a rock star, you don't need to watch this video, so there's no need for you to even listen to me. And you really ought to not try to be a holy warrior, because it's a good way to burn out and just to be an angry person forever. What you can be, if you come to the internet as a relative nobody, as I have, is you can be kind of a hardware store owner, right? If you're in the village, perhaps a village terrified by a horrible goose, and you are the rock star, everybody knows who you are, but what do they come to you for, right? If you're kind of a holy warrior, everybody knows who you are, and they probably avoid you eventually, unless they happen to agree with you from the get-go, or be kind of temptable to your position from the get-go. But if you're a hardware store owner, well, people may not need a hammer every day, but when they need a hammer, they know where to go. They may not need a saw every day, but when they do, they know where to go. That's the kind of YouTube channel that I've tried to build. You may not be interested in hearing about what our sources of Norse mythology actually tell us about Odin, or about his wisdom in the poem Havamal. But when you do feel interested in that, I want you to know where you can go, and I want my channel to be one of the first places people think about. That's what I mean by being a hardware store owner, right? I'm never going to sell a diamond album. I'm never going to get that rock star status. I'm not, going to be in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I haven't had, that's not what TV shows come to me for. But I can be a reliable source of information for people who need to seek it out now and then. All right, here's one that I'm basing on the motto of the 3rd Marine Regiment. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. Their motto is Fortes Fortuna Juvat. Fortune favors the strong or brave. You can interpret it both ways in Latin. My modification of that, which I'm sure has been done before, is Paratos Fortuna Juvat. Fortune favors the prepared. Now, what I mean by this is that you're going to have problems running your online video channel, and they're never going to be the problems that you anticipate. A million stupid little things are going to come up now and then that you're going to have to deal with, and it's going to waste a lot of your time. But you can do a lot of good for yourself by doing things like backing up, right? And I'm not talking about trusting the cloud. By investing in making good friendships and connections with people who know their way around this stuff better than you do. And there's got to be people who know their way around better than you do. just try to sort of, you know, it's a cliche, but expect the unexpected and just try to be prepared and not to be caught off guard if suddenly your hosting service winks out or you're suspended for violating some term of service you didn't know existed. You know, you never know what's going to happen. So just try to be prepared for those things and have a contingency plan. And probably don't get so attached to it that you don't know what to do with your life if it all disappears. Because who knows, the internet could all disappear, right? All right, and here's my 9th and final point. Don't try to found Amazon in 1985. Amazon was a great idea in 1995. Probably no one knew what it was going to be in 2019. But it, you know, the world was ready for an online bookstore at that time. The world was not ready for an online bookstore in 1985, right? I don't think that hardly anybody used the internet or knew what the internet was besides the hardest core I almost said Nords, hardest core nerds in 1985. I say the word Nordic too much. So the world just wasn't ready then, and you may find yourself in the same problem. You may have an idea that you're going to be an all-service, every single thing, one-stop shop for whatever subject you want to talk about, but the world may just not be ready for that, right? The world is ready for some experts to climb down out of the ivory tower and talk to the millions of people who don't want to get as indebted as we have and explain to them this stuff. They don't want to sit in a classroom, right? How many times, speaking to educators now, have you sat in a classroom and realized you were just talking to people who didn't want to be there, who were just there to check off a box, right? That's most of what you do in the classroom anymore. It's harder and harder to get students and even other faculty to to acknowledge the legitimacy of the existence of classes and this stuff. And yet, more people are interested in the humanities and subjects like history, mythology, and linguistics than ever before. We can reach them, but we have to do what Carl Sagan did and reach them where they're looking for information. In the 1980s, that was TV. Today, it's on the internet. So let's do it. Let's reach out. Let's find our relevance. Let's find a new relevance and maybe a better relevance than we've had before in traditional classrooms, and try to reach out as experts and responsibly spread our expertise and help people actually know what the facts are, and maybe this is how our fields go forward. Well, I hope this has given you something to think about if this is a path that you're considering following, online video education. I hope that if you are interested in things like Norse mythology and languages, you'll check out my YouTube channel or the Patreon page that helps me support it. I am also a translator of Norse myths and sagas, and my most recent book is The Wanderer's Havamal, which presents both the original Old Norse text as well as a very carefully done English translation and a full commentary aimed at fairly new people to the study of an Old Norse text. For now, from my beloved home in the Colorado Rockies, I'm wishing you all the best.